All right, let's go. Like the title says, welcome everybody. It's great to see everyone again. Welcome to everybody in chat, Allie, Under Your Scars, and Foul Play, and I Don't Recall, and Sheila Hawkins. Welcome. All of you guys that are in Foul Play's chat, that's awesome, but come over to my chat. Chat in my chat. I'm grateful for Jack for streaming this for me, but let's all play in my chat. I just would really appreciate that.
Well, it
Welcome.
just makes it easier too to questions and comments so forth. I mean, it's great everybody. We got people joining through the Foul Play stream, but that's intended to get them to come over to your channel, and I will post the link.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Well, and there's so much going on right now with the calls and stuff that Foul Play is doing. I think whenever people see that you're going live in Foul Play, they just assume it's something like that, and that's fine if they go there thinking that they're going to get one thing, and then wait, don't just there and pay attention to what Jack is streaming for me, or come over to my channel and learn about the case. We're just getting started in the case over again, so this is the perfect time to get started.
And when you jump over to Ron's channel to listen to this live, just go ahead and give her a subscribe and a like too. How about that?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you so much. So we have Jack and I Don't Recall, Cherie and Kay here. Susan will be a little late, and I haven't heard from Alice, but I know she wasn't, from what I understand, wasn't feeling well yesterday, so she may not be here, and that's okay. So anyway, we're going to discuss the interrogation video. Last week I had given everyone some homework to listen to the interrogation video on your own. See how you feel about it, what you thought about the way the detectives operated, the conducted the interrogation, how you felt about Daniel and his behaviors and demeanors and all that stuff. Hopefully you were able to get a chance to do that. If not, though, we're going to discuss it in a little more detail here tonight with the panel. And but really quickly before I move on to that, I just, like Jack had mentioned, if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. I think he's put a link in the Foul Play chat. And so subscribe to the channel and, give the video a like if you would. And I definitely want to see your comments and read your comments in the comment section later and in the chat as well. So having said that, let's say a quick hello to Jack. How are you doing?
Well, I have to unmute before you can hear me, but I got that pretty quickly. I'm doing pretty good. Trying to get, as you talked about a minute ago, trying to get through these Jody calls. They're some of them are difficult to listen to. I got to tell you. I mean, I wanted them, and I'm glad we're doing it. But actually going through the process is it's I'm gonna say it's triggering. It's just kind of gross. Listen to some of the stuff that gets between her and Chuck, and it's just gross. The the little trigger bombs, or not trigger bombs, but the little flirty shit that they do between each other. It's pretty sick, actually.
Yeah, it's kind of
And then
gross.
thinking about it at the same time, this is Steven's brother, and Steven's in fucking jail. Jody's in jail. She's playing these games. It's ridiculous. If you look at it from, and not even thinking about it, and I'm not trying to discount what happened to Teresa or anyone else. I'm just saying, if you looked at this from the side without that part connected, you'd be thinking to yourself, what the F is going on here, man? Are you kidding me? It's crazy. Anyway, just been busy with that.
Yes.
Hopefully, trying to get. I doubt we'll finish. I'll have another open mic tomorrow. It's really doubtful that we'll finish, so it's probably going to be Sunday. Cam is done. It's done.
Yay! Awesome.
No more fucking Cam. Pardon my French. No more Cam. We're done with that. Doc and Neverly are working on the new material from Frack's new book. So anyway, that's what we'll be doing Saturday. But yeah, just kind of been pretty busy with that and a few other things. And yeah, there you are.
All right, sounds good. I know you're always busy. It's like Cam was done before it started. I agree with that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Jack. I appreciate you very much. And Cherie, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. And hi, everybody, and welcome to Inside the Wrongful Conviction of Daniel Holtzclaw.
Yes. Thank you. And Kay, how are you?
Hello. I'm good. I am good.
That is great to hear. Great to hear.
Ready to roll. Said ready to roll.
Ready to roll. All right. Yeah, we're definitely going to get to it, and ready for the comments and the questions in the chat, so that we can try to help those that are newer figure out what the hell happened with this case and how it all got started. I want to read under your scars comment though, because this was bad trigger for me. She says, I saw the behavior panel on Daniel's interrogation and sucked. Just shows you can't make decisions from one thing. I posted for them to watch Daniel in the den. That was the most horrible thing I think I've watched. Even as disturbing as Chuck and Jody's calls are, that had me so upset when I watched that. I solicited everybody from Foul Play, from Daniel's Truth, anybody who was interested in Daniel's case, to go watch that, because I had watched many behavior panel episodes from different things. And, I was like, okay, these guys are, they have a lot of education and a lot of experience. So, and it was an entire shit show. And everybody that went, and I know Jack and Cherie and Kay and Susan and Alice, I know for sure were all there. I remember seeing them in the chat. It was a premiere. I believe they did a premiere, but it was rough. And they all were like, just not everybody. I know a couple were like so disgusted with what they were saying and the conclusions they were coming to, that they just left there like, I can't watch this anymore. And I wanted to leave too, but I felt like I didn't dare, because I wanted to keep, making respectful comments in the chat, and I just got attacked. And I figured that I would, but I also got attacked by one of the guys on the behavior. Well, he was respectful about it, but one of the guys, I think his name is Chase, on the behavior panel in the chat, kind of coming at me. And I was like, oh, you mofos. It was rough. Anyway, you can look that up and watch it if you want, but it was really
Don't
bad.
watch it. It'll just give you bad information that's untrue. Yeah, so if you're not familiar with the case, do not watch that one, because completely, they get few things correct, which is fucking pisser.
It was bad. So, but what, and we keep telling you week after week, your best sources for information on this case are Bates Investigates podcasts. And you can get that on any place that you like to listen to podcasts. I listen to Podbean. It's available there, Apple, wherever you choose to listen to your podcast. So you can check that out. Definitely the place to start. Daniel in the Den by Michelle Malkin. You can find that on YouTube. And that's also great information. And HoltzclawTrial.com is Brian Bates' website. And so there you can see police reports and things like that he's posted along with each individual episode or an accuser. And of course, for a more interactive and entertaining place to get information, come to my channel. Come here. Those of us that are on the panel, particularly Kay has over 7 years of experience working on Daniel's case, investigating it. So if, like I said, if you want interaction on any one of these given episodes, go ahead and come to this channel. And we don't give you anything that's false or misinformation. We take everything from Brian Bates and from what we have researched and investigated on the case on our own, with what we've been able to get. So without further ado, I'm going to play this excerpts of episode 3 on Brian Bates' podcast. And this is his reflection of the interrogation. And it's, like I said, only excerpts. So we'll discuss at greater detail after it's over. And here we go.
Welcome back to Bates Investigates, the podcast, Season 1, The State of Oklahoma versus Daniel Holtzclaw. I am your host, licensed private investigator and original member of the Daniel Holtzclaw defense team, Brian Bates. This serialized podcast is presented from the perspective of the prosecution, but with the scrutiny of the defense. The prosecution's timeline, the prosecution's evidence, the prosecution's theories. However, I do not take those items at their face value like so many within the mainstream media and the public has up to this point. I apply the scrutiny, or the perspective, or dare I say, reality of the defense. In this episode, I am going to do exactly what I was fearful my critics would accuse me of doing if I hadn't released the entirety of Daniel Holtzclaw's interrogation in last week's episode. To many people, it is that interrogation that made up their minds as to Holtzclaw's guilt or innocence. If you put 10 people in a room and play that interrogation, 5 will tell you it conclusively shows a guilty man, and 5 will tell you they have no doubt that they just listened to a completely innocent man profess his innocence, and that declaration fell upon deaf ears. Why is that? It's pretty simple, actually. Bias. The first thing I did when I was asked to take a look at this case back in 2014 was to watch the interrogation video multiple times. The first time was just to get a feel for the interrogation. The second time was to take copious notes. What was the pattern or outline of the interrogation from the detective's perspective? What interrogation technique was being utilized? And most importantly, what exactly did Daniel Holtzclaw say? And how does what he said differ from what Janie Ligon said, and whose version does the evidence actually support? What I didn't pay much attention to were what so many within the court of public opinion actually fixate on: Holtzclaw's body language, his speech patterns, and well, whatnot. I learned long ago that unless you have something to go on, like the defendant's quote-unquote normal behavior under stress, or know the tells when that person is lying, then it's simply too easy to become distracted, misinterpret, or inadvertently reinforce any bias you may have by over-analyzing how a person is sitting, where they are looking, how they are talking, is that a nervous tic or is it a tell, and what does it all mean? Unfortunately, Holtzclaw was not given that same unbiased consideration by sex crimes detectives Kim Davis and Rocky Gregory. As I pointed out in episode 1, Detective Davis admits that before she ever even scrutinized a single piece of evidence or even identified Holtzclaw as her suspect, that she had already determined that Liggins was in fact a victim and that she was telling the truth. Detective Davis's determination very early on to ensure that Holtzclaw was charged with one or more crimes was made even more evident when she obstructed Holtzclaw's right to a fair investigation by forbidding other detectives to utilize a very common investigative tool, the photo lineup. With that opinion already firmly planted in her subconscious, the interrogation only served to reinforce that bias. And there's a term for it: confirmation bias. This from the Encyclopedia Britannica. Confirmation bias is the tendency to produce information by looking for or interpreting information that is consistent with one's existing beliefs. This biased approach to decision-making is largely unintentional and often results in ignoring inconsistent information. Existing beliefs can include one's expectations in a given situation and predictions about a particular outcome. People are especially likely to process information to support their own beliefs when the issue is highly important or self-relevant. Needless to say, both detectives Kim Davis and Rocky Gregory have openly admitted that this case was the biggest case of their careers. You'll recall from episode 1, only an hour or two before this interrogation, Detective Davis was pulled aside and told, quote, "The eyes of the department were on her." After I spent most of a day watching and rewatching Holtzclaw's interrogation, I next met with Holtzclaw's family and asked them to watch the video and tell me how they interpreted Daniel's body language and verbal responses, since only they knew how Daniel such and what's considered unquote normal. Now I'm going to play a portion of a conversation I had with Daniel's father, Eric. Eric Holtzclaw has spent much of his life in law enforcement, both while in the military and as a civilian. Back in June of 2014, Eric Holtzclaw was, and still is today, a lieutenant with another police department in another city in Oklahoma. Daniel's high school hometown, actually.
And you all went in the conference room and you watched the video. We left you alone and you watched it. What was your impression upon watching that video?
A couple of things struck me right away is that I felt they made him feel very uncomfortable because of the questioning. They started talking about things that really didn't pertain to what the allegations were, his sexual preferences, which hands he masturbated with. She was talking this vulgar stuff that you wouldn't need to talk to a police officer that way. Maybe some street thug that you're trying to establish a rapport, but what she had was an opposite effect with Daniel. Made him feel uncomfortable. He was talking about private sexual matters that you're talking to another police officer, not some street thug or some known sex offender or something like that. So I thought that was really weird. And then I think Daniel still, when I look back at that deal, he was not aware of what they had already placed their bias on. But also, I felt Daniel felt uncomfortable. But I also said he looked very honest and truthful in the way he was answering. That's the way he would answer something, that he was very serious and very scared, I think, at the way that he was being talked to, because I think he started realizing, what's this about? I says, I should stop this lady. And they're talking about, did you show him your penis? Did you see her boobs? Did you ha-ha and all this kind of verbiage she was using? So I think he was really miffed at what they were trying to place on him. And I don't think he realized the gravity of the situation during the interview. In fact, he was trying to stay calm, I think, and say, you can do anything. Give me a polygraph. Take my DNA. I stopped this lady and I let her go. and now I'm being accused of sexual assault. And I think he was a little miffed at why he's being targeted on that.
There's a lot to this interrogation and a lot to unpack, so let's jump in. I want to share something that many of you probably don't know. When an officer is promoted to detective within the Oklahoma City Police Department, there is no quote-unquote detective school they attend. Most of their training is simply on-the-job training shadowing another detective. And if that detective has bad habits, they are likely to be passed on to the next detective. That said, like all law enforcement officers, there are opportunities for continuing education. Weekend or week-long seminars on various topics like beware of confirmation bias and how to conduct a proper interrogation. We know confirmation bias has already taken hold in this investigation, like a cancer, and unless it's addressed, only continues to grow. But what can we learn from the interrogation itself? It appears the detectives are using some sort of a hybrid version of the Reed technique during their interrogation with Holtzclaw. The Reed technique is a technique first developed in the 1940s to elicit confessions from suspects. It's a three-pronged technique: isolation, maximization, and then minimization. Basically, it's the technique often portrayed on TV shows and movies. You first isolate the suspect from everyone else, thus the tiny, uncomfortable, windowless room. You tell the suspect you've got a lot of evidence and it doesn't look good for them. You follow up with some scenarios on how you think they committed the crime. Basically, you play the part of the bad cop. Then, you abruptly change direction and you go with the good cop approach. You comfort the defendant, you tell them you understand how this could have happened, and that if they would just cooperate with a confession, good things will come of it. The interrogation begins, ominously enough.
Welcome to our domain. Now, what's your first name?
Daniel.
Daniel. Okay. Hey, Daniel, just have a sit in here.
Okay.
And
Would you like?
you got a piss or anything? You can have a sit there. That's probably more
I could hold it. I'm not a. I'm just.
All right. I'm gonna run right on out. Whatever's more comfortable, man.
Look up.
That'll work.
Daniel is left to sit alone and uncomfortably until Detective Davis enters the room. Within 3 minutes of Daniel's arrival, the tables are turned on him. While he has read the Miranda warning many times to those he's arrested, this will be the first time he's ever been on the receiving end.
Rocky's coming, but I'm gonna do this and he may walk in here in a minute and get this done. Now, I know you're an officer, and I know you've seen these 1,000 times and you've read them yourself.
Right.
You still ask me any questions if you have one.
Right.
Okay, don't be embarrassed of that.
Right.
Okay?
I think I'm already embarrassed.
Why are you embarrassed? Why? Tell me why you're
The
embarrassed.
station deal, so.
Nobody. Well, I mean, there's rumors flying. I know, and we tried to do that as kind of quietly as we could, and that's why we took you out the front and stuff. But this is gonna make the rumors go away.
Okay.
Okay, for you.
Right.
The rumor tomorrow is gonna be on somebody else.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
So let's get them off of you and get them onto somebody else and get this over with.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
This is the point where, as a member of hundreds of defense teams, I would have advised Daniel to politely, yet firmly, exercise his rights and not said another word without an attorney present. But Daniel is both caught off guard, not fully aware of the extent of the allegations against him, and he's also a 27-year-old naive enough to think that if he hasn't done anything wrong, then he has no harm in talking. Only 6 minutes into the interrogation, and you've gotten your suspect to waive his rights. And how does Detective Rocky Gregory choose to play his cards?
Do you understand each of these rights I've explained to you?
I do.
Just write yes or I do or whatever right there. Oh, you're lefty too. Okay, hold on. You shoot right-handed, but you're left-handed?
Yeah, ambidextrous.
Me too.
So a little bit.
I shoot right-handed and left-handed. Which do you,
Bat right-handed, throw left-handed.
Oh, I'm the opposite. I throw right-handed, but I bat left-handed.
Kick left foot.
No, I kick right-footed. How do you eat?
Both hands.
Oh, left for me. Okay. Having these rights in mind, do you wish to talk to me and us at this time without an attorney
Yes.
present? Okay, right, yes, right there. Sign, print. That's too funny. I haven't met anybody else that writes left-handed.
I masturbate right and left. Does that work?
I think I do that left-handed.
Very good.
Well, I am dominant.
You are?
Yes.
The idea is simple enough. Bring yourself down to whatever level you think will make your suspect feel most at ease so that he will open up. It has the opposite effect. You can visibly see how uncomfortable Holtzclaw is with talk of masturbation and what hand someone uses. This play by detectives is just another example of their bias towards Holtzclaw. They had already sized him up as an overgrown child, a jock with a locker room vocabulary. Their assessment, however, could not be more wrong. Detective Davis immediately latches onto the fact that Holtzclaw made the traffic stop in question while off the clock and while his computer and AVL were intentionally turned off. I think it's important to point out, it's not against police policy to make traffic stops while off the clock, especially since Daniel has a take-home patrol car. Daniel has done nothing wrong by pulling Liggins over. That said, turning off his computer and AVL is against police policy. But, as I pointed out in episode 1, that policy was fairly new, and prosecutors were forced to concede at trial that they had no proof Holtzclaw was even aware of the new policy. Regardless, as it has already been pointed out, Holtzclaw readily owned up to making the stop earlier that morning when it came up in lineup. Detectives Davis and Gregory will have Officer Holtzclaw go over the traffic stop several more times during the interrogation. The goal is to see if he changes his story to try to lessen his culpability. He doesn't. In fact, his version of events is rock solid and mostly matches Janie Liggins' version, except in several very key areas, as noted by Detective Davis.
A thing that kind of concerns me is everything you're telling me is dead on to what she says. Everything. Except the sexual stuff.
While that's important to note, it's not completely accurate, and all of the discrepancies will become important as the investigation moves forward. Daniel repeatedly expresses his desire to cooperate fully and to get this investigation over with as soon as possible. Daniel wants to clear his name desperately because he is very aware what these sort of allegations can do to negatively impact an officer's career. Holtzclaw was being completely cooperative and expressed a desire to do anything to get the investigation over with. This was a perfect time to get him to sign a consent to search form for his home, his computer, and his cell phone. But these seasoned detectives did none of that. After being left alone in the interrogation room for one last time, 2 uniformed officers enter the room and let Daniel know what will happen next and offer to give him a ride home. And like that, it's over. Daniel Holtzclaw will never again wear the badge and gun of an Oklahoma City police officer. But he's not under arrest, and he's not yet charged with any crimes.
Okay. Excuse me. Welcome, Susan. She's got her Christmas shopping done, and she's joined us on the panel. How are you doing, Susan?
And I don't really want to know, but which hand do you use?
Oh, God.
That's so gross, man. It's so unprofessional. I mean, it's not even in the realm of what? Why would they do that?
I haven't met anyone else who writes left-handed. What a
Yeah.
dumb shit.
Yeah.
What a stupid ass thing to. In your whole life, Kim, you've never met anyone who's left-handed.
No,
Like,
Yeah.
she's living in a bubble.
You're trying to make him feel comfortable with you by saying something that's completely ignorant.
Well, and just unbelievable. I mean, that's just completely unbelievable. She's just, and she says that to somebody else, to one of the accusers in one of their interviews as well. I can't remember which one
Sherry
it was.
Ellis.
Probably was it Sherry Ellis? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, what? What do you mean you've never met anybody that's left-handed? That's just stupid. But you know, it.
You should have said, "Oh, you're a lefty. Daniel Holtzclaw's a lefty too."
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are the only two people I've ever met that are lefties.
Yeah.
I've never heard any interrogation like that. I mean, I've heard some rough ones, but it certainly wasn't about anything like that. God.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that whole interaction, that beginning of the interrogation, is certainly one of the most uncomfortable parts. And you know, and I think that as you listen to Mr. Holtzclaw in his interview, he expresses that you could see. And when you watch that video, if you go back and watch the interrogation and you watch his body language, he's just like, oh my God, it really took him. It seemed like it really took him by surprise, and it really made him uncomfortable. So, Susan, I don't know if I can hear you. Have you tried to speak?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
You didn't hear me?
There she is.
I'm
No,
sorry.
I couldn't hear.
Yeah, I didn't
can hear you now.
My mic wasn't
hear you
in my
now.
headphones all the way.
Oh.
Hello.
Hello, Susan.
I'm glad you were able to join us.
I'm just thrilled my shopping is done.
Yay.
And I can join you. Are we going through the whole interview here? Interrogation?
Well, we're going to discuss it. We're not going to watch it. It's just way too long to watch and discuss. So,
yeah.
But I just played 16 minutes worth of excerpts from Brian Bates's reflection of the interrogation.
Awesome.
And then we're just going to kind of discuss the of that in the just of and I am.
Mm-hmm. You are.
Unusual.
I have a question.
Okay.
I have a question for the people in chat.
Okay.
Why do you think, or do you think it's odd that before they had even interviewed Holtzclaw, Kim Davis's supervisor told her, well, no, I guess it wouldn't. Who was it? Was it the assistant chief, police chief that told her the eyes of the department are on you?
Well, Tim Musney told her that that's what the chief said, that's what Chief City said.
Why do you think? I mean, what does that make you think? That's not that seems like a weird thing to say before they've even interviewed the person.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, they don't even know. He hasn't even reported a lineup yet. And when he does, and they say, did someone make a stop at 50th and Lincoln? He immediately said, yes, he did.
It's not like they haven't had these kind of allegations before.
No, they say they get one a month, didn't they?
That's what Kim says.
I think that's what she told Michelle Malkin.
Yeah.
In an interview.
Yeah, I think so.
But they want to say that he turned his computer off, which turns his tracking system off on purpose. But that's inconsistent with when you're asked if you made a traffic stop there, immediately raising your hand and saying, yes, I did. And it was this, this, and this. They had no way of tracking him. I mean,
Right.
he could have lied and said, no, I didn't do that, hoping not to get caught if he really sexually assaulted Janie Liggins.
Yeah.
You know, if he's that dumb to assault someone at a major intersection, then he's probably dumb enough to not think about security cameras that would pick anything up. So you would think someone that dumb would go ahead and lie if they were guilty. I don't know. Anyone else?
Well, Allie says, hi, Allie, and thank you for your comment. Allie says, I would take that as she better be damn sure he's innocent if they're going to clear him. And then she's followed up with, sounds like they want to appear to take these allegations very seriously.
I can hear Kim Davis in the meeting saying, I believe her. I think
Yeah.
this really happened.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and we don't know what happened in that meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
No, there's no.
When asked in depositions, anyone who was in that meeting, really, they just, they really don't know. They can't remember. They can remember who was there, but they didn't ever give any information that wasn't just kind of, here, I'll throw you a bone with this answer because it means nothing.
Right. Something else, when you were talking, Kay, about, he could have just lied and said that it wasn't him, or that he didn't do it. If he were going to lie, he could have said that and gotten completely away with it,
Well,
because
she might have picked him out of a
description she gave-
lineup, though.
well, the description that Jenny Liggins gave was not a description of Daniel, though. So if they were going to go by the description that she gave, he was about 6 foot tall, stocky, or 5'9" or something. I think I don't remember exactly the height, but he had blonde hair. For Christ's sake, he had blonde hair and smooth and skin that was not smooth, like it was acne scarred. So,
but I think go ahead, Rhonda. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt your sentence.
Go ahead. You're fine.
I think that, and I've said this about all these accusers, because, they used people that Daniel had pulled over and had interactions with. So any of these women, and I know they've had, tens of dozens of contact with officers and been arrested, and most of them, not Liggins, but most of them have. But I still feel really confident that if they had Daniel stand up and the person was standing on the ground level with him, I just think because of his presence, and Daniel makes a huge impression, or he did on me. I think these women could have picked him out of a lineup too, but I definitely think they could have identified him.
Right.
I don't think they would forget him because of how huge he is.
Yeah.
It's not normal body type.
And an example of that, my grandpa, my dad's dad, I only ever saw him when I was very, very young. And I think the last time I saw him, well, not the last time, but as a very young child, the last time I think I saw him, I was about 4 or 5 years old. But he was a very big man. He was like 6'3", 260 to 200, close to 300 pounds, possibly. He was a big man. And as a little girl, granted I was a little girl, but I have the very distinct memory of seeing my grandpa and thinking he's a giant. Now I realize there's a big difference between being a little girl and being an adult woman. but still the same principle can apply because, like you said, Kay, it's not just about his size or his, if he's muscular or if he's stocky or if he's short or if he has black hair or blonde hair. It's his presence, and that's he demands or commands that without even trying. He just is a noticeable, unforgettable man. And so I agree that, they could have all picked him out of a lineup.
Anyone who's ever stood beside a professional athlete will know exactly what I'm talking about, because, Daniel's not the only professional athlete that affected me like that when I stood beside him, because they're over a foot taller. That is weird when you're standing next to someone who's not only over a foot taller, but is just like their arms are giant, their chest is giant, their waist is cut, their legs are giant. It's just you're not going to forget it.
Right.
I felt like I sounded like Kim Davis right there for a second.
No, you don't sound like Kim Davis.
Let me sniff some snot up my nose.
Yeah, snort some snot
on the microphone.
She's so gross.
Sound like her.
So
Also,
there's just.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, because I was going to change subjects.
Oh no, that's fine to change subjects, because we can move on from his description and size.
So something else that's interesting to me in this interview is that, so Rocky comes in first. He brings him in. So this is Kim's case. Kim got the call. She was on call. She got the call to meet Liggins at Southwest Medical Center. And meet the SANE nurse there. But Rocky's here. And Rocky was in that meeting of all the brass and, higher up officers who, when it ended, they said, the eyes of the department are on you. They've already decided, and he already has his file with Terry Morris, who she had made an allegation in a 911 call because her ex-boyfriend was, she was pissed at him because he had a new girlfriend. She was hurt more than pissed, I think. And she's tearing up his car. He calls 911. When she realizes that the cops are coming and she's probably going to get arrested, she says, "You calling the same motherfuckers that raped me?" That's on the 911 call. So they investigated that. That was back on May 8th. This is June 18th, where we are now in the timeline. Terry Morris had already... I'm sorry.
Okay, that was May 24th, not May
8th. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. It was May 24th. They investigated that, and she said that she had been assaulted a few days before. She placed it on the 20th or 21st. So they investigated her allegations. Daniel had an interaction with her on May 8th in a different area, completely different. She's told this same downtown city rescue mission story to no less than 4 people, and then to Rocky in a formal interview on June 3rd. They've already cleared Daniel. His AVL doesn't go there. No one stops there. If it's an officer, they looked at the AVLs in that area. They probably chalked it up to she was trying to get out of trouble. Or if not, she's just a just a crack addict, mentally ill, homeless person. We're not going to waste a lot of resources on her and she signs a decline to prosecute. So all of that has happened, but Rocky's going to bring her into this interview about Janie Liggins. So they're already deciding to frame him. And they haven't even talked to him yet. It's just unbelievable. And as you'll
sorry, go ahead.
As you'll see in the next couple of weeks, I forgot what I was going to say. Go ahead.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Sorry.
Not your fault. That's just my brain.
Yeah. So when you think about it, and the more you learn about this case, and really, really, well, the more you learn about the case, the more information you have. It, like Kay's saying, it doesn't make any sense why Rocky's there in that interrogation and why he brings up Terry Morris. And that doesn't happen until about 3/4 of the way through the interview. I think, if I can remember correctly, he brings up Terry Morris and he says, and I'm going to paraphrase, but he says, we got this other gal, Terry Morris, and she's making the same exact accusations as this gal. And that is absolutely not true. Of course, nothing that they said in this interrogation was true, but he says that Terry Morris made the exact same allegations as Janie Liggins, and that just wasn't true at all. And so, and when we do cover Terry Morris, you'll hear exactly how she describes the police officer who allegedly attacked her. And I'm not saying that she wasn't assaulted by a cop either, by the way, because I do believe that Terry Morris is one who may have been sexually assaulted. And and I think that because she's so consistent with her story, she's the only one, actually, if you think about it, she's the only one who's consistent about her accusation through all the accusers, except for when the last interview, that's July 10th, which we'll come around and get to. But that inconsistency was a fabrication by that was fed to her by Rocky, Lieutenant. So, but anyway, it made no sense why Rocky would bring that up. And like Kay said, it makes you start thinking, yes, they were planning to, whether it was Daniel that stopped Janie Liggins that night or what other cop had stopped her and she made the accusation against, I think initially it didn't matter who that was. They wanted to get somebody for the alleged sexual assault for Terry Morris, and they connected that to the stop with Janie Liggins, who was another allegation of a sexual assault by a cop. And it was like, okay, here we go. We got our case. And, we got to make sure we do something about it, because remember, I've told you before that even under the advice of the detectives not to go to the media or give any interviews, Janie Liggins went to the media 4 days after the alleged sexual assault and gave an interview in shadow to the media. Now, in my way of thinking, the detectives had no choice at that point. We're already having racial tensions in Oklahoma City and around the country, really. And this was just before Ferguson happened. So it was just starting to bubble up. But Kim Davis and Rocky Gregory will say in an interview to Michelle Malkin several years later, because she straight up asked him, was there any racial tensions? And they said, no, we don't really have stuff like that in Oklahoma City. Bullshit. And so, it's I don't know. I think that it comes down to that, where they know that they've got to save their brand new city, and to save, to look good in the eyes of, BLM and, other races who are suspect already of law enforcement. They feel like they have to make sure somebody gets convicted for something. My opinion, of course.
I think some of the conversation that may have gone on in that meeting was the optics part, and what was happening around the country. Black Lives Matter had formed in 2013 in response to the acquittal of George Zimmerman for Trayvon Martin's death. And that was a bad deal. It was, there was a lot of violence, a lot of property damage, stuff like that. And that kind of kicked the whole thing off, where people were starting to realize, wow, the things that are happening to these other police departments when they don't handle things the way the public wants them to, it's expensive for our city. People lose their jobs, things like that. And I think that was part of the narrative in that meeting.
I think it's also very telling that Janie kept thinking he was going to shoot her. Are you going to shoot me? Are you going to shoot me? Scared that she was going to get killed. That is what was going on at that time all around the country. And and she was obviously very influenced by that.
Yeah.
And they talk about that during the interrogation. Daniel says, she asked me if I was going to shoot her, and I'm like, why would I shoot you? So she may have had some legitimate fears, I guess, or what she considered to be legitimate based on what's been going on in the country. At that point.
And also, being high, sometimes when people smoke marijuana, it makes them paranoid. I don't have that reaction, but I know people who have smoked and they're just like, I really don't like it because it makes me paranoid. Maybe that kind of exacerbated her whatever kind of fear that she had in that moment. She probably thought she was going to jail, possibly too, because she hadn't had a driver's license in 30 years. So she probably had a lot of kind of anxiety going on anyway when she got pulled over.
That's
and
possible.
and then she goes home and tells her daughter about, getting searched and him searching her car. And that probably just pissed her daughter off, because her daughter was, I shouldn't say was, I'm sure she still is, into Black Lives Matter and supporting of Black Lives Matter, which I'm not saying anything bad about Black Lives Matter. I think if they didn't always, I think if they took things case by case instead of it being, I feel oftentimes, especially any of their involvement with Daniel's case, which it wasn't necessarily Black Lives Matter right away with Daniel's case. It was another group that formed in Oklahoma City called Artists for Justice. But, I think oftentimes those groups look at a situation and they react with emotion instead of trying to look at the facts. It's like, if anyone makes an allegation, then the person is automatically guilty. And we know that there are false allegations all the time. And I think that's the bad part about groups like that, is that they can't be objective. And then you've got frickin' Benjamin Crump, who's just a charlatan. I used to think,
Yeah.
well, good for him, for getting exposure for all these cases. And then it didn't take too long to realize that he's really just doing that for Benjamin Crump.
Right.
He doesn't give a shit about the facts of the case. He's an attorney, but he went on some show called TV1 or something like that, talking about the Holtzclaw case. And he says some shit like they found the DNA in the teenager's panties. Well, okay, hello. There's no panties involved in this case.
Nope.
No DNA panty. I mean, what are you talking about? You're going to talk about this case as a high profile attorney and you're going to do that? Get out of here. He can, oh man, I can't stand to see his face anymore.
Do you know, Kay, if or Rhonda, if Janie Liggins had been pulled over much prior to that? Like, had she gone a long time before, since she had been stopped, or do you know?
I don't remember that at trial. Cherie, do you remember anything about that? I know she has subsequently, but
Right.
Because that's not
yeah,
something you would see on OSCN. 'Cause it's,
I mean, not if they didn't cite her.
yeah.
Right.
True.
But she hadn't been cited for anything?
I've looked at her OSCN docket many times and I don't recall. Mostly it's civil actions for non-payment of rent.
Uh-huh.
It's mostly collections sort of things.
Hmm. So maybe, maybe she'd gotten by for years and years without being pulled over.
Mm-hmm. And she was high, even though she lied to Daniel and said she wasn't. You can tell by her pictures she's always high. I mean, people want to say, "Oh, that's just how her eyes are." Well, fuck yeah, that's how my eyes are too when I'm high.
Right.
God, crazy.
Yeah, there's I don't know how many times she's been pulled over, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, that she's been pulled over a couple of times in 30 years. I would imagine. I don't know that, but I would imagine. And if that's the case, she was never cited by any of those officers either, because I get a lot of that from people. Well, he's a law enforcement officer, and even if he's off the clock, he had to arrest her and take her to jail for not having a license and insurance, or a license, a valid driver's license. No, well, I don't know about other states or counties or whatever, but that's not necessarily true. And I've heard a lot of people who claim they're law enforcement officers, or my husband's a law enforcement officer, and he, maybe.
Yeah, but is your husband a law enforcement officer in the northeast sector of Oklahoma City?
Oklahoma City, exactly.
Exactly.
Can you imagine, like, if he gave everyone a ticket that he had contact with that didn't have a driver's license, didn't have insurance, had outstanding city warrants, he would have spent his whole shift every day just booking people into the jail on these charges. And that's not what he was trying to do in his sector. He was trying to make relationships with people. He was trying to figure out where the drug activity was, where the major drug activity was, who the players were. He was looking for human trafficking thing. I mean, he was looking for those sorts of things.
Right.
That's what he was trying to do. And he was, he wanted to promote up through the ranks quickly. He didn't make it into the NFL. That was his dream job. When he finally decided this is what he would, he was ready to be a police officer. He wanted to be a police officer. He didn't come back home to his hometown of Enid, where there's basically nothing going on. He wanted to go somewhere where he could get into the mix and make a difference and use his strength and speed and to be an asset to a police department. Any officer they asked always said, yeah, he was always there to assist. If you had something bad going on and you asked for backup, you just hoped that Holtzclaw would show up. You were so relieved if it was Holtzclaw that was going to respond, because he could handle himself. And it's another reason, that he had so many use of force violations, because use of force is defined as anything greater than placing on the cuffs. So if someone resists and you have to pin them against a wall to get the cuffs on, you have to report yourself for use of force. And Daniel did that, I think, in all but one or two. How many did he have? Like 16 or something? I can't remember. I'd have to look it up. But
I think it was 19, but I could be wrong.
But you're going to get those. You're going to get those when you work in gang unit, which he did for a while.
Undoubtedly.
You're going to get those when you work in the Northeast sector, where people are going to run from you. You're going to get a use of force if you report it like you're supposed to. And I think it's another reason why he waived his Miranda rights so quickly, because he's had been interviewed by Internal Affairs on every single self-reported use of force allegation and been cleared on all of them. And it was just a procedure of how things work. You have use of force, you report use of force, you get interviewed for use of force, you're either cleared or suspended or disciplined, and then you go back to work.
Right.
I mean, I think he had only been, if I'm not mistaken, he had only been suspended one day for a use of force.
He and several other officers in, a case that we're not going to get into, but they were all cleared of that use of force immediately upon a very quick investigation. So I want to answer this question by Robina before I get any further. She says, do you think Daniel will ever be retried or paroled? This is so horrific. Well, he's not going to be eligible for any parole. We could just let that go right off the bat. And the one that he did go before the parole board 2 years ago, I think now, on charges from Tabitha Barnes. And we even provided evidence that she claimed Daniel never touched her, but the parole board denied him anyway. But even so, that was going to be 8 years off of his sentence of 263 years. So even if they had not denied that parole, he wasn't going to be paroled on that anyway. So retried, that's what we're hoping. We're hoping, through post conviction to be able to, if nothing else, get an evidentiary hearing and a new trial. So I think that's kind of what some of us that are working, consistently on the case that are trying to do. is, provide that proof and evidence that, that he deserves a new trial. So, Jet. So I wish I could say, yep, I think he's going to get a new trial, and yep, yep, I think he's going to be paroled, but I don't think parole is not realistic. But did you need my phone? Okay. Anyway, excuse me, sorry. But but a retrial is, it's always a possibility. I'm not giving up. And I want to show you guys a video, and I'll wait till the end a little. Well, I can get it uploaded now, actually. So hopefully hopefully we can get a new trial for him.
The reality of the situation is that, most of you guys are here because you know about the Stephen Avery case, and how corrupt that is, and how the judges block things as they've been doing. It's no different in Oklahoma. With the judges here, they have blocked amicus briefs because they don't want them on the record. They've handled Daniel's direct appeal in secret hearings so that the public wouldn't see what the issues were with the lab analyst's testimony.
Without his attorney present.
Yeah. Right. They didn't even tell his attorney or him that these were happening. And everyone from the prosecutor's office was there. The prosecutor, the assistant prosecutor, the lab, the DNA lab manager, the city attorney. Who else was there, Cherie, Rhonda?
Let's see. In the secret hearing, well, I know it was Galen Gigger, Campbell Ruddick, Johnny Coleman, Rick Smith, and little Miss, what's her?
McConnell?
Lori McConnell.
Yeah, so Coleman is the assistant chief, for those of you who don't know. And of course, it was handled, the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals sent this issue that was sealed back down to the trial judge, who has since had to retire, and he's just recently lost his license to practice law for at least 5 years before he can ask for it back, because he was sleeping with people from the prosecutor's office who were trying cases in his court. So he's a real stand-up guy.
What a guy. Wow.
Yeah, he also was in charge of the grand jury. If that tells you what Oklahoma's like. So I say all those things to say, unless something happens where Daniel ends up with an honest judge, then he's not likely to find a pathway to relief in Oklahoma, sadly. Not like that. I mean, it's going to take the prosecutor, or it's going to take the district attorney looking at the case and asking for a review or something like that, I really believe.
Nan's Life has a question. She says, when you say secret hearing, is that like a John Doe hearing in Wisconsin? No, it's literally, it's ex parte. It's an ex parte secret hearing. Like, nobody knew it was going on except for the state. Not Daniel, not Daniel's attorney. Nobody except for the people on the state side knew that this hearing was taking place. And it had to do with, what we do know is that it had to do with testimony given by the DNA analyst, Elaine Taylor, during the trial. But it's sealed, and there's no opportunity of getting it unsealed because that's up to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma County.
They called it a personnel.
personnel.
Yeah, they called it a personnel issue because it dealt with lab analyst Elaine Taylor's trial testimony and a review that her supervisor Campbell Reddick did of her trial testimony. We ended up finding that information out through Campbell Reddick's deposition when he set for deposition in the civil suit against Daniel and this Oklahoma City and a host of other people. And Kathleen Zellner got that out of him right at the end. Or we wouldn't know that. But how ludicrous is it to call... Okay, Daniel's case number is attached to this. It's on his docket. So it's part of his case. But the city of Oklahoma City is allowed to call it a personnel issue and keep it sealed. It seems that that would not be the higher priority in this case. Protecting her personnel records when she's clearly done something wrong.
Right. And we don't get to know what that is. Daniel doesn't get to know what that mistake or that, untruth is, which...
Well, I mean, we do know, we don't get to see the transcripts. We don't. And, his attorneys filed a motion to unseal, and in the brief, I don't know what it was. They were talking about, he was unfairly excluded from the meetings and from the hearing. And the judges came back and said, although the defendant should have been allowed to attend, the judges have decided that no harm was done to him. There was nothing of exculpatory value. What? Is that fair? They get to determine.
Hell no.
Get
That's
an
not
advocate.
fair.
Let's just ask Galen Gigger. Did they just say, "Hey, Galen, what do you think? No harm, no foul to Holtzclaw." Yeah, I mean that's the kind of shit we're dealing with in Oklahoma. So will he get a retrial? Will he get an evidentiary hearing? It's super depressing to think that like Stephen Avery, he may just continue to be blocked and blocked and blocked and blocked. I mean, he's already filed an amicus brief with the United States Supreme Court, and they declined to hear it, which they do, 90-something% of everything that comes before them, they can't hear because there's too much. I mean, they're too busy. They're too busy handling stuff that's coming out of Washington, I guess. That probably takes up most of their time.
Catnip asks, has there been another case where similar quote-unquote secret hearing has occurred? I don't know. Kay is really watchful on the goings on there in Oklahoma.
Not
State.
To my knowledge.
Yeah. So I haven't heard or read anything. So
it sure wouldn't surprise me.
well, perhaps, but that kind of leads me to something that's unrelated to Daniel, but I want to play it for you. And I put this in foul play earlier this morning. And so I just want to play it for you guys now. And even though it's unrelated to Daniel, I guess just because Vicky Bahena, the current new DA, had a hand in this, I'm holding out hope that there's some hope for Daniel. So I'm going to play this for you really quick.
America's longest-serving wrongfully convicted man back in court. Glenn Simmons fought for his innocence after serving a 48-year sentence for a murder he did not commit. It's a story we've been covering in depth for 20 years. Allie Meyer was in the courtroom with Simmons as the judge made her ruling.
After nearly 50 years of defeats, this year, in this courthouse, Glenn Simmons and his legal team finally won. And today, they asked a judge for a finding of actual innocence to declare that Glenn Simmons did not commit the Edmond liquor store murder of 1974.
On the night of the liquor store murder, Glenn Simmons wasn't even in the state of Oklahoma. He and a co-defendant were railroaded into a death penalty conviction in an unfair trial where the only evidence against them was the testimony of a traumatized teenager who'd been shot in the back of the head, who'd picked out several other black men in a previous police lineup. 48 years, Glenn Simmons has declared his innocence. 20 years, News 4 has been questioning his conviction. Last year, Simmons' attorney Joe Norwood asked the court to take another look.
He had 50 years stolen from him, the prime of his work life, when he could have been getting experiences, developing skills. That was taken from him by no fault of his own.
In April, the district attorney admitted Simmons' trial was unfair. In July, the judge tossed out Glenn Simmons' murder conviction.
How you feeling, Glenn?
I'm blessed.
And today, Simmons is asking that same court for a declaration of innocence.
This court has considered the evidence presented to it and defended Glenn Simmons.
From the bench, Judge Amy Palumbo read her order aloud.
Court find by clear and convincing evidence that the offense for which Mr. Simmons was convicted, sentenced, and imprisoned in this case at hand, including any lesser included offense, was not committed by Mr. Glenn Simmons.
Amen.
And Glenn Simmons walked out with a legal distinction few ever receive. Actually innocent.
This is the day we've been waiting on for a long, long time. It finally came, and we can say justice was done today, yes. Finally. And I'm happy.
If there is any compensation coming to Glenn, it's in the future. Right now, he's still living off of other people.
Been done can't be undone, but there can be accountability, and that's what I'm about right now, accountability.
A finding of actual innocence is essential for Glenn Simmons to sue for the 48 years, 5 months, 18 days he spent behind bars for a murder he did not commit. Allie Meyer, Oklahoma's News 4.
Now, if Glenn Simmons wins a wrongful conviction lawsuit against the agencies involved in his arrest, trial, and imprisonment, Oklahoma state law limits his compensation to only $175,000, and that's just $3,600 for every year he was wrongfully incarcerated. We put a link to Simmons' GoFundMe at KFOR.com.
Excuse me. Okay, so that, that gives me hope. I pray to God it's not that long, that many years before something moves in Daniel's case. But it makes me wonder, when I listen to some of those details, it made me wonder well, let me back up first. We know, we have proof that there have been innocent men executed in Oklahoma. There's just proof of that through forensic evidence, DNA evidence, and things like that. Glenn Simmons was going to be one of those men, and he fortunately was released in July and then exonerated, I think, on the 19th or the 20th, 19th, I think, fully exonerated. So, that's pretty amazing. Although his life really, he's 71 years old now. And like his attorney said, the prime of his life has been taken from him. And is that what it's going to be with Daniel? But seeing Vicky Behenna in that very short clip that she was in gives me hope that it's just, but we don't know who is how is that going to come about? What the media in Oklahoma have no desire in trying to assist. They're not looking at his case for the next 20 years or 10 years or 5 years, because there's questions of whether or not he's innocent. And so why not? What is it about Daniel's case, especially when you put the excessively harsh sentencing with it, that they're not interested in looking at his case. Daniel has maintained his innocence from day one, and he's never wavered in that. But it's just it is very discouraging to think that that there may not ever be an opportunity. But I just can't give up. I mean, I won't give up. I mean, I don't think any of us here are, even though there are times that we feel like, what is the point sometimes, when Glenn Simmons is the point. An innocent man being spared the death penalty is the point.
That judge.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That judge was really awesome, Amy Palumbo. I went to that evidentiary hearing, and it was we got out of there at like 8:30 at night. The prosecutor was trying to squirrel out of having the evidentiary hearing that day, and the judge was pissed. She said, "We are here for this. We are going to have it." They flooded her with all kinds of papers right off the bat in the morning at, I think, 10 o'clock is when it got started. And so she had to take a break right away. It's like court was in session for maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes. She took a break. Everyone comes back at 1 o'clock. And she let Simmons put on every single one of his witnesses. The prosecutor on his case took the stand on his behalf. What got him an evidentiary hearing was that a Brady violation that had been found. So, but Amy Palumbo didn't have to do that. She could have been like most of the other judges. I mean, if she was anything like Henderson was, she would have just shut it down and slammed her gavel, and he would still be in prison. And she's not Daniel's judge. So when Henderson stepped down, Daniel finally got a new judge assignment several months ago, and it's Trong, and she's the one who set the $5 million cash bond on him when he was arrested. So that's not good for Daniel. That judge is not good for Daniel. I mean,
no.
In my opinion,
she was buddy from what we can speculate, that we have learned, which is speculation. She was pretty good. She was pretty tight with Henderson. So
yeah, there's a room. There's a room. I'm going to tell what that is.
Okay, go ahead.
There was this, and I'm not going to name who this person is, but there was this lady who, she had a case before Henderson, and it was, I think it was a foreclosure case. And according to her, I didn't look up any of the facts of the case, but another attorney said that she was correct, that she did get screwed by Henderson. He cops an attitude against her and just makes all these rulings. She ends up losing her house. And she was so pissed at him that she went and sat in his courtroom every day and she watched him and she took notes. And so she alleges that one afternoon, Henderson and Trong went to a hotel near she saw him coming out of a hotel near the courthouse, and she went and checked both of their dockets, and their dockets were both clear that afternoon. So she surmised they were having an affair, which at the time we didn't know Henderson was sleeping with assistant district attorneys and I think Prater in his article said a defense attorney as well. They never named all the people that Henderson had inappropriate relationships with.
He also, as I recall, would make very inappropriate sexual advances around the, office or whatever.
Yeah,
Am
those
I
are
right about that?
No, those were
Yeah.
the allegations from the women who ended up, coming forward and saying that he sexually assaulted them. I mean, he was, of course, cleared of sexual assault. It was the grand jury investigated it, so it's all sealed. We don't know what happened.
Yeah.
We never will.
Also, in Henderson's case, so it was allegedly 5 women, and 2 of them were assistant district attorneys in the state, and 3 of them allegedly were defense attorneys. So, but we never hear about anything about those ladies or anything like that. They, for some reason, it's been, everything about Henderson has pretty much just been wiped. He's been allowed to resign with his full pension, which just infuriates me. But it's what happened, and that's what they get away with. Which leads me to, I wanted to re-highlight this question, something to talk about. Welcome. She said in a previous comment that she's from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. She said, our justice system here in Oklahoma City is the most corrupt, besides the Wisconsin thing, than any place I've ever seen. They are so corrupt, and I know firsthand. Just with the investigations and the research that we've done, I would agree with you 100%. Something to talk about, absolutely.
Those DAs that came forward, they're still practicing. One of them got married, and she's she's an ADA in Pottawatomie County, and I can't remember where the other one is, but she's just a county or 2 away from Oklahoma County. Like, they should have lost their law licenses if it was deemed consensual.
I agree.
They got 0 punishment.
Yeah. Nobody gets punished. Nobody gets punished in the, well, I shouldn't say nobody. It doesn't appear that anyone is punished in the justice system there in Oklahoma City. And, and I've mentioned this before, but, I've done videos on Galen Gigger and his problems and his legal problems involving one of his sons in an alleged sexual assault, 3 alleged sexual assaults, and in Oklahoma City, but that got swept away, and with some help of his friend David Prater, who was the DA at the time,
it's
it got
disgusting.
moved to. It is. It's
It's
horrible.
disgusting.
And and yet here he is sitting in front of a judge who's accused of serious sexual assaults, passing judgment and trying a man who's accused of sexual assaults, who we know, well, I believe everybody on this panel know to be innocent. And how fucking dare they? But they did. And so that's what we're here fighting about and fighting for. And it's just so yeah, there's just so much information that go, and you'll start hearing a little bit more about different little parts of this information as we go through each accuser. But going back to the interrogation, it's I feel like it was completely, well, it was obviously biased, from the very beginning, because they knew, Kim Davis said before she even knew it was Daniel, before she had even met him, before they'd even called him out of lineup to talk to him, she believed Janie. She knew that Janie was telling the truth and that something bad happened to Janie. So how in the hell can you say that that's that you haven't prejudged? And then just to make up, her and Rocky to make up this whole narrative when they talked to Michelle Malkin in a 2-hour interview, a couple of years later, about they knew, as soon as they met Holtzclaw, they already knew that he was pathological and he was psychopath and deviant, all the sexual deviant, and all of these things based on the fact that Kim Davis believed Janie Liggins in the hospital without even doing any kind of investigation whatsoever.
And when they did get, so what happens in that interrogation at the end is they take Daniel's uniform, belt, and pants. They don't take his underwear. They don't take his shirt. They don't take his bulletproof vest that hangs low. They don't take anything. They don't go to his apartment when they drop him off and take all of his other uniforms. They don't take his underwear that's in the laundry but hasn't been washed yet. They don't do any of that. So they've got his pants and his belt, and then they've processed his car. Janie tells a story where she says that Daniel made her put her hands on the car at some point in this assault and that he put his hands on the car. When you see pictures of the car, it's covered with a film of Oklahoma dust. There are no Daniel handprints or Janie Liggins handprints as she described. When the detectives learned that, that's exculpatory to Daniel. It shows that she's making things up. They still persisted in believing that he was guilty. And they don't know anything about DNA evidence. When you listen to Michelle Malkin's interview with him, they're just dumb as a rock. Kim Davis says some shit like, well, I've never had a case where there was touch DNA involved. That just doesn't happen. Oh,
we've
really?
Never been lucky enough, she says.
Never been lucky enough. That's right. It's just stupid.
Well,
and like I've said, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what's even more stupid is that they think that the general public believe everything they're saying. But not everybody's as gullible as Kim would like to think they are.
Well, we have some pretty dumb people in this state, so
well,
people were eating this up.
Yeah, that's right.
People love drama anyway. The news needs to be really salacious, and that's what this case was. There was never any objectivity at all. Prater was feeding stuff to the press, and they were putting it out, and it was a bad deal. I mean, a reporter from the Oklahoman newspaper, he did a 4-part long form series on this case called Hunting Holtzclaw. And he met with Brian Bates, who gave him access to all the records and told him his side. This reporter, Adam Kemp, he's just, I think he was so enamored by Rocky Gregory. I lost this recording of an interview that he had with Rocky Gregory that was an audio, but he seemed starstruck by meeting with a detective. It was the weirdest thing on that tape or on that recording. I'm dating myself by saying tape.
Oh, it's okay.
All you other old people know what I'm talking about. Oh, anyway, it was just so freaking ridiculous and biased, and the press helped convict Daniel before he ever even had a chance. And that with everything else that was going on, the whole Ferguson, Missouri thing happened before, right when that happened, they were scrambling to get Daniel into custody, because I think then they were super fearful that property destruction was going to start happening. And, that just the Black citizens and the organizations the groups that had formed to support the women's allegations, that they were going to just start planning to get things really ramped up. And if that meant riots or whatever it meant, Oklahoma City had and is still spending millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars just making this Oklahoma City something that it's never been. Can you imagine if you look up Bricktown, Oklahoma City, Bricktown? Can you imagine a riot down there where they've spent decades and all this money fixing it up, and then it's just burned to the ground? And if I recall, the police chief in Ferguson lost his job over that deal too. So there were all kinds of things like that to think about. It took me a really long time because I could never figure out, why would they frame him? It just didn't make sense, and I couldn't figure it out. And people would always ask me, and I thought, I watched his interview and I instantly thought he was not guilty. And I wanted to learn everything else I could to, see how he could be guilty. And every time I would try to talk to people about it, they would say, but that doesn't even make sense, Kay. Why would they frame him? It's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I wish I could figure it out, but I don't know. I just knew that I felt like he was innocent. And now I really feel like I'm right about why.
I do too, Kay.
Yeah, I'll quit hogging the microphone now.
It makes sense, makes total sense.
Oh, I see. It's okay to hog the microphone. One other thing I wanted to mention, when she said you can, at the beginning of that interview, when she's getting ready to read him the Miranda warning, and she says, I know you've read this to people, but if you have any questions, don't be embarrassed to ask. And he says, well, I'm already embarrassed. That shy, kind of naive demeanor that you see from Daniel in that phrase and in explaining to her why he's embarrassed, that's Daniel. I've spent many, 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 many hours talking to Daniel over the past 7 years face to face. That's Daniel. I mean, yeah, is he? And that was especially Daniel the first time I met him in prison. And, that year, as time has progressed, as he's been in prison year after year, I've watched him harden because it's required, That's just unfortunately, yeah, it is heartbreaking to see such a sweet guy, such a humble, shy, loving guy, have to be, just watch him be hardened like he is. I mean, I'm not saying he's not still Daniel. Of course he is, but he's had to adapt to his situation. And he's adapted. So anyway, I kind of forget about that part. I don't watch this interview there are a couple things I hate watching, and it's this 2-hour interview. And I absolutely will not watch his sentencing or his when they came back and found him guilty.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I can't look at Kim Davis and Rocky Gregory sitting nervously out of place at the end of the prosecution's table, being super fake, trying to make small talk because they're obviously uncomfortable and they know they're on camera. Galen Gigger and Lori McConnell are, they're on pins and needles. I don't think they know that it's going to be a guilty verdict. And I think they're half afraid that it's not going to be. But Daniel said when there was one juror that he could tell throughout the whole trial, it was a female juror. He had a sense throughout the whole trial that she believed his side, and he felt like at the very least she would hang the jury. And he said when she came in and she wouldn't look at him and then she was crying, he knew that they were going to send him to prison. And that's when he started breaking down. You can see it happen on the tape when you can see him looking over there and making eye contact with her, and then you can watch his face visibly change. You can see all of that going down in his facial expressions. It was very interesting, but I hate watching that crap. And now I'll stop hogging the microphone.
You're not hogging. I mean, we all, including myself, we learn a lot from you. So you're not hogging the mic. I'm happy to let you speak, and say whatever you need to.
Do you have photos of some points that you were going to show or something? I hate to cover something that you are going to cover.
No, I don't. Just what I had put in the video that I made.
Okay. So let's see. I mean, so basically what happens is they take his They take his belt and his gun, his belt and his pants. They, Rocky contaminates the evidence bag by putting his hand in it to open it up. And then Daniel just rolls up his belt and pants together and puts him inside that contaminated evidence bag. So that was, transfer from any part of his pants to any other part of his pants.
Yeah.
Anything that was on his pants could have transferred anywhere. That's not how you package evidence. And then they gave him a ride home. And they didn't take anything from his house, which he gave him. They didn't take his phone either. Did they take his phone at some point or I think they just got his phone records at some point.
Yeah,
they did take his phone at some point. They did get his phone at some point. They didn't get it that day when he volunteered it to them.
Okay. I guess. Yeah, maybe. No, because they couldn't have gotten it after that interrogation because he wasn't cooperating with them anymore at that point.
Are you talking about his work phone or his own personal? Because I remember Michelle Malkin asking him, like, why didn't you take his phone or something like that? Or...
He didn't have a work phone, but
okay.
But his other phone. Oh, but guys, don't you remember? Sorry, I'm plugging in my computer here. It's about to die. Don't you remember them saying that all they could find on his phone was bodybuilding pictures and they didn't find any porn or anything, any links to porn sites or anything like that on his phone? Remember that?
I do not remember that. I don't remember that. But that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
It happened, man.
I'm sure. I just don't remember. So I did pull up a picture. It's really hard to get good pictures from the interrogation because that's all we have are just the recording of the interrogation. But this is a picture of, if you haven't seen it before, the picture of Rocky Gregory putting his hand in that bag. And then he sets it down on the floor and Daniel, like Kay says, Daniel just rolled up his pants and dropped him in the bag with the belt in the and just so we don't know why he was framed, for sure, but I mean, you were speculating and, just kind of using our reasonable deduction skills, but we don't know.
And Daniel is in an undisclosed location under an alias. So his location isn't public.
Yeah, he was elbow deep in it, T1, because he literally puts his hand down in the bottom to open up the bottom of the sack. So, yeah.
When you look Daniel up, I think it lists him as Lexington Receiving Center, which is where he was processed and shipped out from. A lot of the accusers have this conspiracy theory that he never really went to prison and that he's in hiding somewhere. They have him hidden out somewhere.
Oh, good Lord.
I know. It's the most ridiculous shit ever. They petitioned the court to tell him his location, and the judge wrote this really stern response, basically saying, you don't have a right to that information. It's this court and this state's obligation to protect Mr. Holtzclaw. He is in our custody.
Yeah, that was the accusers. The accusers wanted to know where he was.
Yeah, that was during the civil trial. They got pissed and decided they needed to know that. I think that was another Benjamin Crump led thing.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
No, we can write. You can write to Daniel. Absolutely, you can write to him. Let's see.
Write Daniel Holtzclaw at gmail.com. Those go to his family. They print those off once or twice a month, and they are depending on how many letters come in, and they send them to him that way.
Yeah, and just so we're so there's no confusion, you actually part of the email address said is right. So it's all one word, right, Daniel Holtzclaw at gmail.com. Yeah, you bet. Thank you.
And please do write him. That's like Christmas mail time is. It's that feeling, he says. So please write him and tell him about yourself and where you live and what you like to do. And you don't necessarily have to commiserate the case with him, because that's, it's not quite the diversion. He's happy to answer any questions you have about the case. Don't get me wrong about that. But, some people don't know what to say to him, so they just go over the details in the case that they know about and tell him how unfair this and that is and how they disagree with this and that. That's not like a diversion for him. He really enjoys the letters that take him away from the case. It's kind of a mini escape for him. So
and he likes to hear about your life and the good things, the fun things that you're doing with your family. I know it's hard to write about those things. I understand that, because I still struggle writing those things to him, but I'm getting better at it. But he wants to hear about the fun things. We talk sports, back and forth occasionally, Daniel and I. And so, by the way, I got a letter from Daniel last week, and I meant to say it in last Thursday's podcast, and I didn't, and I forgot, and I'm so sorry, but he wanted me to again tell all of his supporters and all of you who are following the case and following the channel and, paying attention to know how much he appreciates you guys. And he means that. He's very sincere with that. So I apologize that I didn't tell you last week. T1 has a question. Does Daniel have a passion now for other wrongful convictions, like Ricky Kidd? Does he have a desire to help others in the same position? I'll let Kay take that, because I'm not sure.
He does when he gets out. But like right now, as far as he doesn't have the information to even come to a conclusion about things like that. And those sort of things agitate him. And I think he spends a whole lot of his time trying to burn off steam so that he doesn't have a bunch of pent up anxiety and just dealing with all the stupid shit inside prison is, when you're not.
I don't know. Sorry, Kay. I don't know if he knows Ricky Kidd or knows of Ricky Kidd, but I did reach out to Ricky Kidd and ask him to take a look at Daniel's case. He told me he was familiar with it, but he hadn't really done any investigating or any research into it. and that he was going to. And of course, I haven't heard anything back. Ricky Kid's got a huge following, and he's always on tour, and he's doing great things.
I misunderstood the question. Yes, he has written to people who are advocates for the wrongfully convicted and people. He is in touch with other wrongfully convicted people who have been exonerated, whose support he has.
Yeah.
And like Rhonda said, he has reached out to multiple people asking for their help and spreading the word about his case. But he does hope that he can work with the wrongfully convicted when he gets out.
I mean, I can see, him being a Adam Brazil or Anthony. I can't remember. I can't say his last name. Depo or Ricky Kid. I'm sure that Daniel wants to be one of those guys. Whenever he can find relief and be released, which I believe that that's what he will definitely have a passion for, or a desire to do, is help the next guy that's wrongfully convicted. So, all right. So we just kind of touched some major points in the interrogation. You now have a, if you didn't before, where Brian Bates stands with that interrogation. I think where most of us on the panel stand with that interrogation. And, it's just, again, if you didn't get a chance to watch it before, check it out if you can stomach it, because it's really difficult to watch. I've watched a lot of interrogation videos besides Daniel's, and his is extremely difficult to watch, just mostly because of the behavior of the detectives and the questions and the way they speak to him. And like Brendan, for instance, watching his videos, I can't even watch Brendan's anymore, and I don't watch Daniel's anymore either. It's just, I feel like I know everything I need to know about that interrogation, and I know enough about it to know that it's disgusting and it's inappropriate on every level. Notwithstanding the Reed technique, I get it. The detectives have to do their investigating a certain way. The problem that I have is that they weren't investigating. Kim Davis was not investigating whether or not this officer sexually assaulted somebody. Her goal, in my opinion, was to simply go in there and try to buddy up to him, be one of the guys, and try to get him to break. And when you get to the end of the video, of the interrogation video, and the way she all of a sudden doesn't believe anything else he said, but let's be honest, she didn't believe anything he said to begin with anyway, but all the way to the end of the video, when if anybody in chat does not know this already, she calls Daniel's girlfriend, who's at the gym at the time, and asks her, "Did Daniel have sex with you last night?" His girlfriend at the time had no idea who this detective was, if she was even really a detective. And if you are, why the fuck do you think it's okay to call me and ask me a question like that? And so she answered, according to Kim Davis, his girlfriend answered, "No, he didn't have sex with me last night." Well, he didn't say he did. And she twists that whole thing around. He said he tried and she wasn't interested. She was too tired. She was going to sleep, wanted to go back to sleep. And Daniel said, and she pushed me away, and that was it. And but Kim Davis latched onto that one thing that she thought was an inconsistency or a lie. She told him, I don't believe you. Now I don't know what to believe because I've already caught you in a lie. Or she says, because I just caught you in a lie. At the very end of this interrogation, she thinks she's caught him in a lie. Listen to it yourself and you judge what you think actually occurred, what Daniel said and what Kim Davis called him a liar on. Anyway,
jingle your bells with us. Okay. Yeah. What a goofball. Oh, sorry. Did I say that out loud?
You did, and you act like it's something new to you.
I'm gonna mute now.
She acts like she doesn't know that I'm a goofball. She knows. Yes, Kim Davis absolutely looked foolish and incompetent. No, Daniel's girlfriend did not stick with him once he was convicted, and she didn't just like drop him like a hot potato. She still supported him. As far as I know,
she did visit him in prison a couple times, so it was a while after he was sent to prison that
she believes he's innocent.
She went on with her life, and
you can't blame her.
No,
they're both so young. She was so young. I don't know. It does seem like, wow, that's not a very good hint, but you know what?
No one can
I can't blame her.
That.
Yeah.
No.
You just can't blame her. It's just, they had been together for, I think, about 6 months, maybe 7.
Yeah.
So, they were pretty close. They were, very.
They were already talking about, families and marriage and stuff.
Yeah.
So they were a good match for each other.
Yeah, she's a bodybuilder. They had very common interests for sure. So, T1 is spreading his Christmas cheer. Jaznaz, thank you for popping in. Great to see you. I can't imagine, what that would be like. He can't help nobody in there. They have him silenced until he gets out because if he wants to speak up, he would pay for it. Are you talking about Daniel? Something to talk about?
Yeah, probably. He can't really communicate about anything since, as we're listening to Jody's jail calls, all that stuff gets used against you and turned. They can manipulate anything he says, and if he gets a retrial and make it look horrible. So, and I'm sure there'll be some of that. They pulled out some of his jail letters in a deposition and asked him, "Who's this?" And it was just like a classmate's mom who's a good supporter. Daniel was homecoming king and her daughter was homecoming queen, and so they had known each other from high school, and I don't know why they were trying to make her letters seem so nefarious. It wasn't even anything, but they were just kind of fucking with him.
Yeah. Yeah, just trying to make him look like a dirty.
Or just making him uncomfortable.
Pervert,
it wasn't anything. I mean, it didn't. There wasn't even anything to make him look bad in the letter. It was just, it's like, what is the point of you pulling out that letter and trying to have him tell you who is this? Just intimidation, I think.
Intimidation.
We're reading all your mail and we're listening to all your calls, and Just so you know.
We got our eyes on you, and we hear everything you're saying. So, yeah. Okay. Hopefully that kind of gave some insight into the interrogation without us having to actually watch it all. And, you know, again, like I said, and I think Catnip put the link in the chat for the interrogation, so you could go back and watch it. If you don't watch any other part of it, though, just go back to that part. Go to that part near the end where Kim Davis just gets all twisty about his about the interaction with his girlfriend, because it's really she acts like she's got this big gotcha on him, and that's not at all the way I took that at all. So. Okay, so we're going to. I want to try to do another episode next week. I'm just really concerned that it's a busy time for me and my family, and so I'm not going to promise one. But if I can do one, I will definitely get it scheduled a couple of days ahead of time. Oh no, we don't have any. We don't have any calls. We haven't been able to get any jail calls of Daniels or any of the accusers who've been incarcerated or anything.
That wouldn't be a jail call, though. It would be. Wouldn't it be a call with? Or maybe she's
Prison
talking
call.
about the call between Kim Davis, and girlfriend.
Oh yeah, no. Oh, that's probably exactly what she means. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, Allie. No. Well, I mean, I believe it's in the police report, but I don't know of anything that the call wasn't recorded. Kim Davis was on her personal cell phone, and she's not very techno, as she will tell you. So she doesn't know how to record on her cell phone. And of course, there was no call to the girlfriend, Carrie, from a sex crimes officer or anything like that. There are some, and I'll show those to you, Allie. If you want to go to Bates Investigates YouTube or Holtzclaw Trial YouTube, there are videos of accusers in those two those two YouTube channels. Also, if you go to holtzclawtrial.com, I believe most, if not all, of the video or the interviews of accusers that were recorded, I believe you could get from holtzclawtrial.com. If not, though, go to the YouTube channels.
But they didn't record all the interviews, Allie.
No,
I mean,
just a few.
Especially the ones that were the most damning. Anything that's really damning is not recorded. Anything that any accuser said that, oh, he did it again, right?
Yeah.
But that's not recorded.
No, the trial was not televised, but it was a circus. There was a circus. And Bates does cover that in one of the episodes, probably more than one of the episodes, about what the atmosphere was like outside of the courtroom, outside of the courthouse, and things like that. We're working on bits and pieces as we can. We have read some transcripts. Can't remember whose, but we've read Adara Gardner.
The links to
Tabitha
some
Barnes. Yeah. Say that again. Sorry, Kate.
The links are in Daniel's Truth Discord channel to some of the sections of trial testimony. It's not all there in order. And we love the questions.
Yes, please don't stop asking questions. Don't apologize. Yeah, there's no reason to apologize for questions. That's what I'm hoping. That's what we're encouraging. That's what we want, is for people to ask questions so that the truth can be shared.
Start out with Terry Morris's interview, of which start out with the June 3rd interview, June 3rd, 2014, Terry Morris. That's the accuser they had to make become a part of the case to be able to even have a case.
Yeah.
If they couldn't have got her to come along, they couldn't have made this case fly.
Without her. No.
That's how they turned him into a serial rapist.
And if I do manage to put it together for next week, and considering that, if I do manage to get it put together for next week, Terry Morris is who we will begin covering, and we'll start with the 911 call that was made on the night of May 24th. We'll start with that, and then we'll go into the interview with Rocky Gregory as well. And so also you can go way back in the Wayback Machine to some of my earlier videos when I didn't know very much. I didn't have very much knowledge or information. And but I did, what I did have, I made some videos. And I think there was like 3 parts to Terry Morris's case, because it's pretty involved. So there are actually 3 law enforcement interviews with Terry Morris, and each one of them is equally as important. So if you kind of want to get a little bit of a preview, I guess, of what's to come, you could go check those out as well. So I will work on getting a show for next week, and we'll see how much I can get put together with all the festivities that'll be going on. And I will schedule it a couple of days in advance, maybe a day in advance, if I'm able to pull it together. Otherwise, it'll be the week after. So, but I don't want to have any gaps. I'm trying to keep everything as close together as I can within reason. So I think that's all we have for tonight. And unless anybody else on the panel has anything else that they would like to discuss. About it?
I was just going to say also the interview with, and I can't remember her name, the short black guy.
Sherry Ellis.
Sherry Ellis. Allie, watch that interview.
Yes.
It's very interesting.
If you, well, I don't know, I'll end up here another half hour if I show those, but I have 2 videos on my channel. One's about 3 or 4 minutes long. It's Tabitha Barnes, and then I have another one with Sherry Ellis that's about 8.5 minutes long, and they're excerpts from their depositions. And Sherry Ellis's includes not only excerpts from her deposition, but her first phone contact with Kim Davis, and a clip of her interview, her in-office interview with Kim Davis. And then at the end, a clip from her deposition where her whole case just sort of falls apart, honestly. So if you can, Kat, I don't know how quick you are able to grab those links and put those up, but those are extremely interesting. So thank you, Susan, for bringing that up as well. Excuse me. Okay, so that's the plan for the next episode. We'll definitely be beginning with Terry Morris. And Kay is very, very not that she's not passionate about the whole case, but she's very passionate about the Terry Morris story, because she's absolutely right. Without Terry Morris's allegation, even though I don't feel like she actually made an allegation against Daniel, but without her, Daniel would not have been made into a serial rapist. And you'll see that for yourself as we go through it in a little more detail in the coming weeks. Okay, so we're gonna kind of go to the panel and just hear from your last comments, everybody on the panel. Jack.
Great job tonight. Another nice conversation. So keep it up. I think it's a great way to educate people about the case, and through you guys, and connecting to Brian Bates and the insane amount of work he did. It's great. I like it. So keep that up. And then just a little plug for tomorrow, 5 o'clock Central. If you want to listen to more pukey Jody Steve calls, please take your Pepto and antacid and Xanax and join us. Thanks.
Thank you, Jack. All right. Susan, do you have any final comments about any of this?
Well, I'm happy to see some new people getting interested in Daniel's case. He needs all the support he can get, obviously. So yeah, that's great. Thank you, people, and thank you, Rhonda.
Oh, thank you, Susan. Thank you very much. Cherie, any comments?
Well, I echo what Susan said. Thank you, folks, for coming to learn more about the case. He needs support. So thank you.
Thank you, Cherie. And Kay, what do you have?
Oh, I think I said everything. Patty Cathy doll pulling my own string all night.
Stop it. Hey, listen, if I wanted you to not say anything else, I'd let you know somehow. Okay, that's enough. But I'm happy to let you talk and share what you know and what your thoughts and opinions and all that stuff. So,
well, thank you. I have to say it right when I think of it, or I forget it. So
exactly, I understand. I completely get it. We all, most of us on this panel, I'm not going to say which ones, most of us on this panel live with squirrels in our constant sight somewhere. So it's completely understandable. No worries. Okay, well, I'll just take the last couple of minutes to say Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope that your holiday is bright and joyous and cheerful and all those good. Allie says she's a squirrel chaser too. And, just that, with whoever you're spending your holiday with, I hope it's the best time that it can be. And with that, I will just say Merry Christmas and peace out.